December 7th, 1941. A date most Americans remember. Pearl Harbor. The Arizona burning, the explosions, the chaos, the infamy. But there's another ship, one that America forgot. The USS Oklahoma. She didn't burn like the Arizona. She didn't explode in a ball of fire, no. She turned upside down. And 429 men went down with her. But their story didn't end that morning. For 84 years, something exciting, something desperate has been trying to reach us. This is the story America never heard. The story of the women who waited, the children who carried gas masks to school, and the sailors who tapped and tapped and tapped until the tapping finally stopped.
Pearl Harbor, December 7th, 1941. 7 o'clock, Sunday morning. The sun just beginning to rise over Oahu. Church bells would ring soon. Sailors were sleeping in. Families were making breakfast. Children were planning their day at the beach. It was paradise. A morning like any other. Aboard the USS Oklahoma, a battleship the size of 3 football fields, moored peacefully at Battleship Row, 429 men were going about their routines. Some were writing letters home. Others were in the mess hall drinking coffee. A few were topside, enjoying the warm Hawaiian breeze. One of them was a young man named George Thompson. Born in Omaha, raised at Boys Town during the Depression, George had found a home in the Navy. In his letters, he wrote, "They treat me swell here." At 7:55, everything changed.
7:57, the sound came first. A low, droning hum, growing louder. Then, someone shouted, "Torpedo warning!" Japanese bombers, flying so low you could see the pilots' faces, screamed over the harbor. The USS Oklahoma was exposed. Moored on the outside, protecting the USS Maryland, she was a perfect target. The first torpedo hit the port side, then another and another. 5 torpedoes, maybe 9, in the first 10 minutes. The massive ship began to roll. Imagine a building tipping over. Floors becoming walls, walls becoming ceilings, men sliding, tumbling, falling. The general quarters alarm finally sounded, but it was too late. 12 minutes, that's all it took. 12 minutes and the USS Oklahoma capsized completely. Her masts jammed into the mud, her hull pointing toward the sky. And inside, hundreds of men were trapped in the dark.
For days after the attack, rescue crews worked frantically, cutting through the thick steel hull, listening, and then they heard it. Tap, tap, tap. From deep inside the overturned ship, men were tapping on the hull. Morse code. S-O-S. Help us. We're here. We're alive. The rescue crews worked around the clock, cutting, pulling, praying. 32 men were pulled out alive. 32 miracles. But the tapping didn't stop. Not right away. For hours, then days, the sound grew fainter. Tap, tap. 429 men were lost. Their names were read aloud. Their families were notified. But most of them remained unknown.
While the world watched Pearl Harbor burn, there were others who lived the war in silence. The mothers, the wives, the daughters, women like Mrs. Dallas Marshall. She received a telegram 3 days after the attack. Missing in action. Status unknown. Unknown. That word would haunt her for decades. Was her son alive? Was he trapped? Did he suffer? She would never know. And she wasn't alone. Hundreds of families received those same cold, impersonal telegrams. Unaccounted for. Missing. Presumed dead. For years they waited, hoping for a letter, a phone call, anything. But the silence was louder than the explosions ever were.
And then there were the children, the ones who saw everything. Joan Zuber Earle was just a little girl living on Ford Island, right in the middle of the attack. She remembers walking home from school and seeing the battleships broken, like shattered toys on a sea of burning oil. The smell stayed with her forever. Burning fuel, smoke, death. After the attack, the children were given something meant to protect them. A Mickey Mouse gas mask, designed by Walt Disney himself to make children feel safe, to turn a nightmare into a game. But Joan remembers. She had to carry that mask everywhere, to school, to play, even in photographs. It wasn't a game. It was a burden, a reminder that even children were no longer safe.
For 70 years, the men of the USS Oklahoma remained unknown, buried together in mass graves, their families left with questions that had no answers. But in 2015, something changed. The Defense POW-MIA Accounting Agency began a project. They exhumed every single casket, every unknown sailor, using mitochondrial DNA, dental records, bone analysis. 13,000 bones, 4,900 DNA samples. One by one, they brought the boys home. George Thompson, the boy from Boys Town, was identified, returned to his family. Stephen Pepe, John Connolly. 355 men were finally given their names back. After 80 years, the unknown became known. The forgotten were remembered.
But the Oklahoma herself had one more story to tell. After the attack, the Navy raised her, a massive engineering miracle. Winches, cables, months of work. Slowly, the great ship was rolled upright, scarred, stripped, covered in barnacles and oil, a ghost. In 1947, she was sold for scrap metal, towed by 2 tugboats toward California. But the Oklahoma refused to go quietly. 500 miles from Hawaii, a storm hit. The ship began to list, to take on water, and then she sank. pulling the tugboat backward. The crew barely escaped. The cables were cut at the last second. The USS Oklahoma plunged to the ocean floor. Her exact location was never recorded. To this day, no one knows where she rests. The Oklahoma escaped the scrapyard. She returned to the sea.
December 7th, 2025. 84 years have passed. At Pearl Harbor, the ceremonies continue. At 7:55 in the morning, the exact moment the first bomb fell, the nation pauses. A moment of silence. At Ford Island, the USS Oklahoma Memorial stands. 429 white marble posts standing in perfect formation, manning the rails forever. Each post bears a name, a life, a story. And nearby, the USS Arizona Memorial still weeps, black tears of oil rising from the sunken hull. But there is something else happening, something remarkable. The blackened canteen ceremony, a ritual of peace. Dr. Hiroya Sugano, from Japan, pours bourbon whiskey from a canteen recovered from a crashed B-29 bomber into the waters of Pearl Harbor, honoring the fallen of both nations, enemies once, but now united in remembrance. This is the pathway to peace. The men of the USS Oklahoma are home now. Their names are known. Their families have answers. But the question remains, how do we honor them? Not just on December 7th, but every day. By remembering their sacrifice, by teaching their story, by building pathways to peace. 429 souls tapped on that hull, hoping someone would hear them. We heard them. And now we make sure they're never forgotten. If this story moved you, if you believe these men should be remembered, we'd be honored if you'd join us. Subscribe to keep their memory alive. Because some stories are too important to let fade away.